Central Peninsula Hospital is proud to welcome Dr. David Katz. Dr. Katz is the director and co-founder of the Yale Prevention Research Center and a medical contributor for ABC News. Dr. Katz lectures on effective strategies for weight control and better nutritional health to audiences ranging from elementary school children to academic colleagues and public health leaders. Here's Dr. Katz.
Prior to 1993, if one were to ask any audience what the leading causes of death were in the United States, there was only one correct list of responses. Heart disease was number 1, cancer was number 2. Who knows what number 3 was? Stroke was number 3, diabetes 4. In 1993, McGinnis and Figi published in the Journal of the American Medical Association a paper entitled Actual Causes of Death in the United States. They were the first to point out that when someone dies of a heart attack, to say that the cause was disease of the cardiovascular system is not terribly illuminating. What we really want to know is what caused that. Diet and physical activity now are, or soon will be, the leading cause of premature death in our society. And so I think we can reach the conclusion that it is not stethoscopes and scalpels that are the master levers of medical destiny, but rather feet, forks, and fingers. If we do the right thing with these, use our forks to eat well, use our feet to be active, and not use our fingers to bring cigarettes to our lips, we can dramatically alter our personal medical destiny for the better. We have now known this across the expanse of 2 decades. We're all familiar with the expression, knowledge is power. Unfortunately, I think it's untrue. Knowledge may be necessary for power, but clearly it's insufficient, because the gap between what we know and what we do with what we know belies the notion that just knowing is enough. We have known since 1993 at least that feet, forks, and fingers were the master levers of medical destiny. We have known that tobacco, dietary and physical activity patterns at odds with wellness were the major causes of premature death and chronic morbidity in our society. If knowing were enough, we would have fixed these. We have not fixed them. Knowing is necessary. It is clearly not sufficient. And as a result, we find ourselves in a somewhat desperate plight. Now, there are many ways to characterize the current plight of our society, but one of the most graphic is to look at trends in obesity, which, by the way, is on the causal pathway to every major chronic disease. So it's a good place to begin this discussion. You doubtless know of the association between obesity and heart disease. You may not know that there is a cohort of nearly 1 million people followed by the American Cancer Society for 30 years that has been the basis for publications in journals including the New England Journal of Medicine, showing an association between the body mass index, the measure of weight to height, and every single cancer, with the exception of 2. Squamous cell carcinoma of the skin, primary tumors of the brain. But there is a strong association between obesity and breast cancer risk, colon cancer risk, prostate cancer risk, stomach cancer risk. This goes. There's even an association between obesity and lung cancer risk when we account for the effects of tobacco. But the strongest link of all between obesity and chronic disease is the link with diabetes. Diabetes, like obesity, is projected to rise into the foreseeable future, so as bad as it is going to get worse. So we can take stock of our current situation this way. Some 65 to 80% of adults in this country are overweight or obese. Now, folks, I'm guessing in an audience this size that some of you have struggled with your own weight. And I'm here today to make a very emphatic statement on that personal topic. It is not your fault. It is not your fault. It is not your fault. I do believe in personal responsibility. Feet and forks are the master levers of medical destiny. What I do with mine is up to me. What you do with yours, to some extent, is up to you. But the world in which we use them is not of our personal devising, and you can't tell me that there is a shred of scientific evidence to suggest that 65 to 80% of the current generation of Homo sapiens has some deficit in personal responsibility that every prior generation had. And if you even think that, if you think we are the greatest generation of slackers in history, I defy you to convince me that the current generation of 7-year-olds is less endowed with willpower or character or personal responsibility than every prior generation of 7-year-olds, because the current generation of 7-year-olds is a heck of a lot fatter. This problem is bigger than the individual. Yes, we must all sign up and take a share in the responsibility to solve the problem. You needn't be to blame for the problem. 65 to 80% of us are swept up in this. As a result, we have epidemic insulin resistance among adults. As a result of that, we have an epidemic of type 2 diabetes among adults. How bad is that? An organization called the Adult Treatment Panel of the National Cholesterol Education Program basically tells us diabetes equals heart disease. Think of them as the same. The problem is this. If you take this and you add this, you get this. In much the same way as if you took this and added this, you get this. Suffice to say that they are excellent in soaking up and retaining what is in their native habitat a scarce commodity, warmth. But if you transport these marvels of survival to the burning sands of the Sahara in summer, all that it would take for their goose to be cooked is for them to keep doing what they have always done. If you soak up and retain warmth when it's scarce, it fosters your survival. If you soak up and retain warmth in a place where warmth is abundant, it fosters your demise. And I trust you see the point here. We are polar bears in the Sahara. Throughout most of human history, calories were scarce and hard to get, and physical activity was unavoidable. It wasn't called exercise. It didn't require specialized equipment or fancy footwear. It was called survival. We have devised a modern world in which physical activity is scarce and hard to get, and calories are unavoidable. Houston, we have a problem, and Soldotna and every place else as well. We are polar bears in the Sahara in the sense that we are living in a world totally at odds with our native traits and tendencies. And fundamentally, we have no native defenses against caloric excess or the lure of the couch, never having needed them before. But maybe we have one. Great big Homo sapien brains. We are smarter than the average bear. So we must first apply those big brains to understanding a problem this simple and fundamental, and then devising the solutions. We can think our way out of this mess, and that's just what we need to do. Now, there are folks trying to help with that, such as Michael Pollan, who has this very good advice to offer up. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Okay? Very good advice. But potentially advice that's hard to swallow. Now, in certain parts of the world, this is easy. If you live here, you eat food, certainly not too much, probably not even enough, and mostly plants. If you live here, there's more, but still not too much, and mostly plants. If you live here, more still, but not too much, and mostly plants. However, if you live here, frankly, I think you need different advice. If you live here, the advice you need is, if it glows in the dark, you probably shouldn't eat it, right? Because, frankly, the only things recognizable as plants anywhere on here are the tomatoes and grapes. Everything else is a bag, box, bottle, jar, can, and who the heck can tell what part of the natural world, if any, it came from. These images are from the book Hungry Planet, What the World Eats, and they represent the groceries for a family for 1 week. This, of course, is our country. Welcome to America. We have a similar approach to nutrition education in schools where, again, you have the problem that there isn't much time, but there is stuff the kids need to know. We developed the Nutrition Detectives program, also available in its entirety for free. Colleagues at Yale have recently published data showing that the foods that are most aggressively marketed to kids are the very foods that any concerned parent would advise them not to eat. I hope your backs are strong. I hope your commitment to cause is stronger still, because the ultimate defense of the human body resides with the body politic, and the body politic is us. Thank you very much.